Hello everyone, it's Marc Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore here, and welcome to the MuseScore Café. This is my weekly series. We talk about some aspect of making music using MuseScore. The different aspects of using the program, all its different features, all the things you can do with it. And this is the third week of the month, the third Wednesday of the month. And so we're going to be continuing the series I've been doing called the Score of the Month, where I just take a piece of music and look at what's involved in entering it. And since in the context of the workshop we've been doing, the music workshop we've been doing, SATB arrangements, people have been working on those. I'm going to be doing, it's not going to be SATB, I've done some of that, it's just going to be vocal music in general that I've chosen to enter here, because I did kind of last week also, worked on a piece that was SATB specifically. So what we're going to be looking at here is, I think, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to see. It's Bach's B minor Mass, and I'm going to try to put in a chunk of that. It's a big monumental piece of music, it's been on my mind lately. I don't know the whole piece. I know bits and pieces of it, and I'm interested in entering some of this into MuseScore and seeing what comes up. And my very first hurdle is finding what I want to work from. And so we're actually going to look at that also, because I want to be talking about this idea that, gee, that piece of music, a lot of music has been out there in tons of editions, some of which has been scanned and uploaded to different websites of different quality. Some people have entered stuff into MuseScore.com, and again, various different levels of quality. And one of the things that I want to see happen going forward is kind of a known good set of music. And I don't mean good music, I mean good editions. Things that if people are going to go to the trouble of entering some piece of classical music, I would love to be able to put some sort of stamp of approval on it to say, hey, this is Mastering MuseScore approved, right? That it's using the program correctly, it's reasonably accurate as far as musically, and so forth. So this is all stuff that I want to be looking at going forward. And so I'm going to start this process looking at this Bach B minor Mass, all right? So, I'm going to show you, first of all, one of my main go-tos. If you haven't already seen it, you should be aware of this. It's a fantastic resource, IMSLP, which I always forget, International Music. I always forget what it stands for, but IMSLP is this resource of tons and tons of classical music that has been uploaded by various people over many years. And so it's a fairly complete collection of, almost any piece of music more than 100 years old that you've heard of is probably here. And so this is often my starting point. And when I say it's here, I don't mean some random person typed the music into MuseScore or whatever. I mean, these are the actual published editions, PDFs that have been scanned. So these are usually great starting points for doing any other sort of work. Now, the other thing, of course, that most of you know about is MuseScore.com. And if I go to MuseScore.com and search for Bach B minor Mass, I'm going to find all sorts of people who have entered different portions of it into MuseScore. And I can't vouch for any of these, right? I don't know Samuel Rickman, probably. He looks like he's done a whole lot of that. There's a whole lot of people who have entered different aspects of this. The fact that that the Samuel Rickman person has entered so many chunks of it already, he's obviously put a lot of work into it. It automatically makes me tend to trust his work, but yeah, I don't know. So we're going to have this in reserve, know that there are some versions. And if we look here under score type, so this is a MuseScore.comism, you'll see user scores, And sometimes you'll see official scores, right? You'll see it say official scores here. And then those are scores that are actually uploaded by the publisher. And these have typically not been downloadable. There's some other, okay, so you all know about the big deal probably I've talked about or you've heard about elsewhere where Muse Group, the company that kind of, runs MuseScore, now also owns Hal Leonard, the biggest music publisher in the world. And this is going to be shaking up a whole lot of things, but in ways that we don't know yet. But one of the things that I'm wondering about is, well, does this mean we're going to have access to more official scores through Hal Leonard, and will they be downloadable? And will there be, more stuff set up for that? I don't know what's coming of that, but I got my eye on it. Anyhow, there is no official score for this to use as a basis. So, anyhow, this is this is what I'm looking at. And yes, weather-wise, I'm very happy that we are having our heat wave of 40. So 40, U.S., this is 40 Fahrenheit. So, that's like 5 Celsius. It's nothing to write home about, but it beats negative 20 Celsius, which is what it was yesterday morning when I came in for office hours. So... All right, so I'm going to return now to IMSLP and talk about what's going on here. One of the things, by the way, when I talk about that I want to have this sort of stamp of approval I can put on music to say, oh, this is a pretty good transcription. This isn't just an idle, oh, I want the Mastering MuseScore stamp because I'm like all about Mastering MuseScore. No, it's about serving people who want to find a good version and are staring at this list of all these different editions of this piece of music, not knowing which of them are actually accurate. This guy, Samuel Rickman, because it's such a big piece, he's uploaded in all these different movements. So a lot of what you see is just him. But, if you go to some other random page of the search results, you see all these different people that have uploaded all these different things. And for all I know, those are better. I don't know. So, we can go off of the star ratings, but I don't put any stock in those. Like, someone voted this, someone only 2 votes for this one, right? So not enough people have seen these to be able to put star ratings on them, and I don't necessarily trust that those are meaningful. So in any case, I want people to be able to find good editions, and one of the reasons for this is Braille. I talk about accessibility a lot. It is now the case, over the last year or two, technology has improved to the point where if you have a good MuseScore edition of a piece of music, you can export it to Music XML and convert it to Braille and then have a good Braille edition with very little effort. The tools do that kind of automatically. So this is a huge thing that wasn't true a couple years ago. The tools existed, but they weren't very good. Now the tools are quite good, but what we're lacking is any sort of good workflow. So that's what I'm looking at building up this year. And so, anyhow, that's a lot of talk. Let's start looking at some of the music. So if you go to IMSLP, imslp.org, I'll just put the thing in there in case anyone, imslp.org. That's where I'm going to here. And specifically, I am looking at this mass. What we'll usually see is and the reason I started to talk about Braille is it is now the case that people can upload Braille editions to IMSLP, which is very cool. That's only been the case for, I think, the last few months. And so after music is into MuseScore, if someone goes through the process of exporting to Music XML and then converting it to Braille, you can just upload it here, and then everyone can have access to that through this. But we'll try to see what we can do about getting that on MuseScore.com as well. So on IMSLP, the first thing you'll see are recordings, which is fine, it'd be great to listen to those recordings, right? And then you'll see ones that are just selections, and sometimes you'll see ones that are like transcriptions for other instrumentation and so forth. You want to scroll down to where it says sheet music and look at what's going on. And these sheet musics here, there will be complete editions first, if it's like a large work like this. Then you'll see ones that just have excerpts, like maybe someone has just put out the Agnus Dei portion or whatever of it, or if it's a sonata, only the second movement, right? That kind of thing. So you'll see excerpts listed after the complete versions. Here are the looks like selections is what they call the part that's only portions. Within the complete stuff, everything will be listed more or less chronologically in terms of the age of the edition. So this here, when it says holograph manuscript, this is actually I actually don't know this specific one. This might be Bach's own hand, or it might be one of his sons who recopied it, or something. But this is handwritten from Bach's day. This is, a handwritten score here, and this is of great historical interest. It's frankly not going to be that useful to me because, well, I mean, this is actually, as things go, not as hard to read as some. Not as hard to read as some. This is actually pretty darn good as far as such things go. But still, I'm not going to want to work from this handwritten edition. So I'm going to skip the ones that say holograph, and they're useful to consult for historical accuracy and so forth. But just to get the job done, I'm going to skip past those, and I'm going to get to ones that are actual printed editions. Here's the first printed edition here. And then, you can look and see who the publisher is and see if it's a publisher you typically respect. I don't know that particular publisher, but when you see these ones here, Breitkopf und Härtel, that's a big publisher, and they're going to have editions of all this kind of stuff. So this is typically one I would probably want to go for. But, the first edition is quite useful also. But often, let's take a look at this. When we're talking about Bach, the first edition may well be using clefs that we don't use today. Let's take a look. So this is the first printed edition. It looks, okay, so what are these, right? These are vocal clefs. These are different C clefs, right? Or are they G clefs? Because I know Bach used different G clefs for instrumental music. In other words, where the center of that indicates where G is. I think these are C clefs. They're just, like the modern alto and tenor clef. So he's got all these different clefs going on here, and I don't want to have to read this. Yes, I could just click the notes in without even knowing what they are, but yeah, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to skip past first editions of music that old, and I'm going to come and wait until I find an edition that's from, say, the 19th century or later, in which they have updated the clefs. And Stephen is observing about the subscription to IMSLP, and yeah, I support them. I'm currently logged in. It just makes the experience of using the site a little smoother. It doesn't bombard you with ads, and you just know that you're supporting some really, really good work. So yeah, and it's very inexpensive. So that's what I'm currently logged in. So this edition here is still using these C clefs here, right? You can see it, but now they're modern-looking C clefs at least. I am a little curious if I'm going to find a slightly later edition that. Let's see, this one just says it's a reprint. Let's see if reprint in this case actually is literally just reprint, or if it modernizes the clefs. Because, if I can go with modern clefs, I will, and if not, I ain't going to worry about it. But, yeah, I don't know what this one is, so I'm not going to... I'm just sort of reading over the descriptions to sort of get an idea if I think any of these are any different or better. Barenreiter. Let's check out this one. Urtext edition. So Urtext edition, that's something else you should know. Urtext means it's trying to be as faithful as possible to the original handwriting. So if some other edition had replaced the clefs, this would have set it back to the original clefs, and so forth. So this Urtext edition is kind of interesting also, and maybe I'll work from that. Let's see. I'm spending time on this because this stuff is important and will become increasingly important as we go forward. But yeah, let's just go ahead and go with this most recent Breitkopf edition and just go with this one. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm working on my Chromebook, which has a feature where if I hover over my minimize button, you'll see this float option. And this allows a window to basically display above. I also want to make this zoomed to the width of the screen. This is now going to display, even if I flip over to MuseScore, you'll see I can click in MuseScore and this window stays open. It's a really great feature Chrome OS has. I'm pretty sure there's ways of doing that in both Windows and Mac OS, but you're going to have to figure them out yourself. I think someone pointed that out earlier, how to do it on one of those systems. And so y'all can help each other out in the chat. But this is going to be a really nice thing where I'm going to be able to kind of keep looking at this score while I work in MuseScore. So let's take a look at this, though, again, a little larger, so that I can take a look at what the instrumentation is. And let's just set up the score, all right? So I'm going to flip back over to MuseScore and Control-N to start a new score. And here it's going to be a little tricky to the new score dialog is very likely going to be, hidden by my floating window here. But I will endeavor to get, because I don't need to see the music, right? I just need to see this. So let's do what I'm doing, and I want to say choose instruments. And here's a thing you all might want to help me out with here. I think I'm going to understand what all these instruments are. In fact, I'm pretty sure I will. But sometimes there's things like the German word for trumpet, trombone, and horn, and cornet can get easily. They look like each other. The thing that looks like it might be a cornet is really a horn. The thing that looks like it's a trombone is really a trumpet, etc. So if I make a mistake here, let me know. But it looks like we got two flutes. So one flute, I double click. Another flute, double click. Oboe d'amore. Right? This is a specific instrument. Someone tell me in the chat more about it. I always see it. I always think it's like more like an English horn. It's like a lower pitched oboe. Is that not true? I should know this stuff, but I don't. But there's oboe d'amore. So I'll add two of those. Fagotte is a bassoon. So clear my search list and just add a bassoon. And then it looks like we've got violine. That means singular. Is that true? Violini would be plural. Is that true? Is this German or is this Italian? Flöte. That's okay. So this is German. Forget that. That's So I'm gonna say that because there's only one viola, these are only singular violins. And again, someone might want to clue me in on the chat. I got too many windows open here, so I can't be monitoring my chat at the same time. So I'm looking over at my other computer, but someone can tell me if those are really meant to be single violins or a violin section. Someone who knows this piece or who knows the German could probably tell me that. Stalling, I'm just going to go with singular because I'm going to say violin. I wish I knew. But violin, and then another violin, and then a viola. And then we get some voices. We have a soprano 1, soprano 2, alto, tenor, bass. And then we have what must be an organ, right? Orgel, I don't know exactly what that is short for, but it is presumably an organ of some kind. And then we have cellos and basses. Cello and bass, singular or plural. And they are both playing off the same staff, which is pretty typical of this type of music because they really are meant to just play the same part. The bass will just be doubled at the octave. So I'm just going to add it as cello. Now, notice the score ordering here. The upper strings are up here, then the voices, and then the cello. That is not sort of standard score ordering. Typically, the voices would come above all the strings. We have the winds, and then the voices, and then the strings is typically the way orchestral music with voices would be organized. Um, I'm looking over here. Violene is one. Thank you. Violenen. I should have known. See, I took German in school. I should know plurals, but I just spaced because I'm thinking Italian. Violinen, of course. Violinen. With an N is the plural ending. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And thanks also for the confirmation on the oboe de amore. So, anyhow, I was talking about score ordering. This is a little non-standard as far as typical ways that things are done. The voices are usually above the strings. Here, he has this edition. Who knows how Bach? Maybe this is how Bach actually did it. I could look back at that manuscript, and that he has the upper strings working with the winds, and then the voices, and then the bass part. And if you look at it, that sort of makes musical sense because the winds and strings are kind of working together. They have the same rhythms, bom, bom, bom. And the basses have this totally different part. And so it kind of made sense for him to want it with the organ. So I would have to decide if that's something that I want to mimic. In other words, do I want to mimic that kind of quirky score ordering? And I'm going to do it, if nothing else, so that you all can see how. I'm shrinking this down because once I get it small enough, that toolbar disappears, and then I have a little more room to work with. All right. So let's talk about that score ordering. If I want to take that cello part, no, what I want to do is, first of all, I want to see if one of these other ensemble types will just automatically do what I want. I don't think that's the case. If I choose choir ordering, no, now it's got all the voices on top. But this, in that dialogue, you'll see all these different orderings, and depending on which one you choose, it will order the instruments in kind of the standard way there. So what I want to do is I want to get the string, just those three strings above the voices. So I'll select the violin and boom, 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 and move it down, move it right below the winds, and then do the same with the viola, and then do, the same with the other violin. You can also do this after the score is created using the instruments panel. And if I get anything wrong, I will fix it that way. And then the organ goes down to the bottom. Oh, and so does the cello. I wasn't supposed to move the cello. So I have now set up the score ordering the way it should be, I believe. So let's now go to the next screen here, in which we're going to choose various other aspects. The key has two sharps, and of course we know it's Mass in B minor, so I could tell it I want minor. There's no real difference between whether you say B minor or D major, but MuseScore does record that fact and will export it to Music XML. So since it is meant to be B minor, not all movements will be in B minor. Some of the movements might be in D major, but I'll just go ahead and pick B minor. And then the time signature is common time, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick 4/4 here, but I'm going to tell it I want the common time symbol. And tempo, is there a tempo marking on this thing? It said adagio, right? And I'm going to just fix the tempo marking later so I can enter adagio from the palette, so I'll not worry about that. There is no pickup, and who knows how many measures this whole thing is going to be, so I'll just leave it at 32 for now and know that I can add more measures later. All right, let's enter just a little more information. I'm just going to put in... So now you get to decide, am I doing the whole piece or just one movement? I know I'm doing just one movement, so maybe I'll put Mass in B minor and then subtitle Kyrie. Right? So maybe that's how I'll do it. And then under Composer, J.S. Bach. And at that point, I think I've entered all the information that I want. It's public domain. I don't need to worry about copyright message. And I'll say done. And I will shrink this down so now I can, in fact, see the chat again over here, which is nice. So, orgel is organ. All right, there you go. So I was looking at that period and thinking, oh, that was short for something. But no, you'll notice that he's got periods after the names of all of the instruments. I'm not going to worry about copying that. I'm not going to translate those names into German. I'm not going to do any of those things. And these are decisions that you can make when you're entering music. Do you want to copy some particular edition's spelling of the instrument names, or you just want to go with modern naming and then get the notes off of the edition. So the oboe d'amore is pitched in A minor third below the oboe. But if we look at this, nothing is transposed, right? It looks like the oboe here is in unison with the flute. They both have the same key signature. They both have the same notes there. And then oboe 2 is in unison with flute 2. So it definitely appears to be the case that this is not a transposed score, right? And if we look at what MuseScore gave me transposed. It's transposed the oboe down a minor third, right? This is B minor. Minor third or major third? Major third. Because this is B minor. This looks like G minor. No, not G minor. This is D minor. This is B minor, D minor. Okay, yeah. So it's up a third. Of course, I'm going the wrong way. I'm confusing myself. In any case, we can tell by the oboe part that this has been transposed, and I don't want transposed. So I got to click my concert pitch button so that now everything is in concert pitch, and I can enter my oboe music the way it is here. All right. So let's get some notes in here. This particular piece, if I scroll down a bit, let's see, do the lyrics start right away? Yes, they do. So I'm going to have time to get to those, right? And I would jump ahead to where they were if not. But I really wanted to go through all of that stuff that I went through because this is all kind of important stuff as we get into this process of like trying to create good editions of music and figuring out what to work with. I want you to know about all these things. All right, so let's get that tempo marking in there. I'll select the first rest here, and then in the palettes, I will say under tempo, I want adagio. And I'm just going to put in adagio. Oops, I lost my selection. Try that again. Adagio. I'm not going to worry about editing it to put the period in there. He's got, this particular editor likes periods, right? He's flute 1, period, right? That's like, I don't know what's going on with that, but that was the way that editor did things. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with modern conventions. I'm going to put in the first 2 measures of flute 1 notes here now. Okay? So, N for note input mode, 5 dot D. 4, let's bring the volume up so y'all can hear as I'm entering things. 4D, 5E. Ooh, I need to return back over to give me a second. Return back to this, and I have to do my thing that fixes my sound a little bit. There we go. That's a Linuxism. All right. And then, because I just rebooted this morning, and then next measure, F sharp, 4, F sharp, and then F, E. I'm going to go ahead and put in the dynamics and that slur there because I'm then going to want to copy this passage to other instruments because other instruments are going to need the same stuff. So I might as well get that all in there. And Walter, I see that you had asked about using concert pitch. And yeah, it's not that concert pitch changes the key signature. It transposes the music. If you're not familiar with transposing instruments, that's something you get to learn about. You might want to do some research about. Oboe d'amore is like this strange instrument that we had to look up, or I had to get you guys to be my encyclopedia on that. But trumpets, for instance, a typical B-flat trumpet sounds a step lower than written. So if you have music in the key of D and you want to write it for trumpets, you actually have to write it in the key of E for trumpet, and then it will sound like D. MuseScore handles that automatically via the concert pitch button. And I have a video. I got multiple videos on that one. A video in the course about it, but also just a tip of the week from maybe a month ago, where I talked about how to use the concert pitch button. But anyhow, what it does is it handles that transposition. The fact that some instruments, like mostly wind instruments, sound a step lower, a third lower, a fifth lower, whatever, than written. Or in the case of piccolo, a half step higher than written sometimes. Depends on the model of the piccolo. So concert pitch doesn't actually change the music. It just changes how it looks so that it does the right things there. All right, so I've entered now those notes. Now I want to get some of the other things in. So let's get the slur. I'll select the first note, press S. Since it's just a slur between two notes, that's all you got to do is press S and it automatically goes to the next note. Just for grins, if I'd wanted the whole passage to be slurred from here to there, I would select that whole region and then press S, and then it would slur over that whole region. But just to create a two-note slur, you just have to select one note. All right, now I want to enter that first dynamic. So I select that first note, go to the Dynamics palette, and Forte. And then we have a crescendo that extends for 2 beats. So I select those 2 beats, and I can either use the palette or the shortcut, which is the less than sign, the one that kind of looks like a crescendo. When I enter that, you'll see it automatically kind of moves the crescendo over to avoid that forte marking. It's smart enough to do that. And it's smarter about such things as of about MuseScore 4.1 than it ever has been before. But it's been reasonably smart about it since MuseScore 3.0 something, 3.02 or something like that. And then, so this time I'll use the shortcut, the less than sign, to get that crescendo in there. All right, so I have that line entered. Before I forget, I'm going to save this thing, because you never know when something's going to go wrong and crash or something like that. I don't want to lose my work. So I'll just go to my MuseScore Café folder here. Oh, no, this is something different. That's where I actually have the MuseScore Café theme music. Never mind. I'm going to go to my Mastering MuseScore Café folder and save it here. Mass in B minor. There we go. So that way, yeah, if anything goes wrong, I'm covered. So now that I've entered that, I can copy it to the other staves, but I can also see that the second flute is pretty similar to the first. Not identical, but pretty similar. So let's talk about some strategies for this. One thing I can do is just copy this, and then if I look down, well, gee, then oboe is pretty much the same, and then then the bassoon is at least the same rhythm. Violins are the same, are a similar rhythm also, same as the bassoon. So I could copy the notes and then fix them. There's all sorts of little tricks to that sort of thing. But when I look at as many differences as they are here, it is not similar enough that I think that's going to save me any trouble. I think I'm going to be better off just entering that second flute part. In fact, I'm gonna copy these. I'm gonna copy this down here. So Control V, and then just change the pitches. And there is repitch mode. If I go in here into the note input thing, you'll see repitch mode, and that will let me just type new pitches in. But the rhythms have to be identical for that to make sense, and the rhythms aren't identical, they're just similar. So again, it's just gonna be easier just to do this manually. So I want this D to instead be a B, so I'm gonna use Shift Alt down arrow to transpose these notes diatonically. Now this one isn't supposed to be a quarter, it's supposed to be an eighth, so I type my B and then plus A. Did I miss the plus? Oh well. Up arrow, now it's an A sharp. And I want to get that slur in before I forget, so there's that. And then the next measure is different rhythmically, so I'm just going to retype it. I'm going to leave the crescendo in place. I think MuseScore is going to leave it there for me, although I can't prove that fact. I think it's going to leave the hairpin in there for me. So let's find out. A, and then equals for the natural sign. A, yeah, it left it in, good. And then 5 equals for the natural sign. C, and then 4, B, 5, G. And again, select that first note, enter the slur. Now, you can enter slurs while you're entering the notes. You press S while you're still in note input mode, and then it'll turn on slur mode, and then you remember to press S when you're done. I just never got into that habit. I'm not going to claim it's not efficient. I'm just not into the habit. Okay, so Dennis is saying he wishes there was a Shift R to repeat things vertically. In fact, there kind of is. Kind of. So let's take a look at this. If I'm going to copy this passage here down to the oboe. If I then select down, say, a bunch more staves like this, so I've now selected that part there in the oboe 1 as well as all those other staves. I'm now going to go to Tools, Explode. Explode is meant for a specific thing. Explode is used for cases where you have a chord of multiple notes and you've written it all on one staff, but you really mean that to be first trumpet, second trumpet, third trumpet, fourth trumpet, and it will explode that chord onto multiple staves. But it doesn't only work for chords. If you select a staff that has only a single note, but then you also select the staves underneath it, when you type explode, it will just copy that passage down to the staves below. So that's kind of a cool way to pre-populate those staves with an exact copy of something if it's going to be similar enough for that to pay off. And the question is it similar enough to pay off? Well, kind of yes, kind of no. Because only the first oboe was supposed to have that. The second oboe is supposed to be a copy of the second flute. So let me copy that and paste it in here. Now, how about the bassoon? Well, obviously that's way too high. Let's take this down a couple octaves, control down. This is close to right, but not really. It's also a couple steps lower. So B to C sharp, and then D sharp up to E. So if I select these two notes here and press up arrow, now I got my D sharp. Select this note, go up to E, press 5 to turn it into a quarter note, and now I got my bassoon part. Yeah? So I am able to some extent, make these nice things happen using these tools like explode or repitch mode or whatever. If I look at the string parts all have the same rhythm. And so once I get that rhythm in there, it's basically the same rhythm except this guy is a quarter note. So bum, 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 right? So let me actually copy this. I don't know what's going to happen if I try to explode when those staves aren't empty. I'm going to save first because I'm scared. But now I'm going to try to explode and see if it's going to replace the bottom two staves. It did, so nice. All right, so now I've used explode, and it's copied that violin part there. The pitches aren't right, but I'm going to fix all the pitches using repitch mode. Stephen is asking about the score being concert pitch, and yes, it is, and that is what I established earlier here because I can see that they use the same key signature, and the oboe 1 is doubling the flute. It's pretty clear. All the way through, all the pitches are identical throughout that first line. So it's pretty clear that this score is concert pitch. And concert pitch scores are not typically a common thing, but they might have been more so hundreds of years ago, before the transpositions of instruments were as settled as they are now. There were probably many different models of oboe that had different transpositions, and so you would get your music in concert pitch and transpose it yourself on the fly. It was only after these transpositions started becoming more standardized that you would more typically see the score itself call for the key and say, oh, this is for oboe in A, or whatever. All right, so let's use repitch mode and get these pitches now. All right, so repitch mode. There is a shortcut for it. It's Control-Shift-I. There's not a shortcut to go back to default step time mode, which is annoying as heck, but that is just the way it is. So I'm going to go Control-Shift-I for repitch mode, and now you'll see that note input icon has changed from the normal note thing to this note with arrows on it. And what this means now is I don't have to worry about durations. I just type new pitches. So I can type D, and I get a D. Control up takes it up an octave. I don't have to change to eighth note. I just type another D, and I get another D. Type the C sharp, I get the C sharp. Type F, whoops, wrong octave, so control down, B, B. And now I can go down to the staff below, and I think in repitch mode, what's going to happen if I click here? It added another note. So yeah, I wasn't sure what would happen if I clicked in repitch mode. I now hit Alt down to go down to the previous staff, and then Control left to move over a measure at a time. And now I can enter the violin 2 part, which is F sharp, up an octave, F sharp, E, and then A, down an octave, F sharp, G. And so I'm not having to worry about durations. As long as they're all the same duration, that's the beauty of repitch mode. So the viola part. So here is the part now where the fact that I don't read alto clef very well is, annoying. Because I wish I just knew, looking at that note, oh, that's a G. Is it a G? No, it's not a G. It's a B. I know it's like one different than it would be in treble clef. I never remember which direction. One of these days, I'm just going to learn to read viola clef, alto clef well. But I could instead click these notes in, but if you notice when I do that, it adds them to the chord. So if I shift click, I believe it replaces. Yes. So I can now shift click these notes in without knowing what they are. Isn't that kind of nice? I can enter this note here. I have no idea what that guy is. Actually, I know it's a D. And then press up arrow, and it's a C sharp. A D sharp. I'm just shift clicking these notes in. And again, since they all have the same rhythm, this works. So in repitch mode, shift click will replace the current note rather than add to that chord. It's the same actually in standard note input mode. So, so that's a whole lot of different things that I got to talk about explode and things, and I've done a whole lot of things in terms of looking up the music, and I haven't gotten to any vocal music yet. Well, we're about to, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's save the score so that I'm protected against any disasters here. All right, so now I get to deal with this clef business here. And Happy New Year to you, Michael, as well. Okay, so this clef here, I got to zoom in to be sure, but that looks like it's on the bottom line. It's a C clef on the bottom staff line. So I think I'm going to go ahead and fix that clef right now. All right. By fix, I mean I'm going to enter it the way this edition has it, and then when I'm done, I can switch it back to treble clef. That's what's kind of cool. In fact, I'm gonna show you this, and we're going to find out if this works, but I think it will. I'm in concert pitch mode right now, right? I think if I change the clef and then I go to transpose mode, it'll change the clef back. So normally that's a good thing, because when you want to transpose, you want to transpose score. But I think it's the case that if I change this clef now, it'll only change while I'm in concert pitch mode. Anyhow, so let's go to the palettes, open the clefs palette, and you'll see that only the standard alto and tenor clef are available by default, but I click here under more, you'll see all the other positions. So there's soprano clef. All right. It looks like the second soprano is fortunately in that same clef. Alto is in the actual alto clef. Tenor is in the actual tenor clef. And bass is in bass clef. So I've got my clefs the way I want them now. I can't read this very well, but as long as I go with clicking notes in, which I normally don't like to do. You normally see me using keyboard shortcuts. But if it saves me having to read soprano clef and figure out what note that top line is, if that bottom line is a C, I don't want to have to think that hard. So I'm just going to click my notes in. All right, so let me save again. Let's come over to that measure, go to note input mode. I could be, again, trying to be clever with copying and pasting because I recognize that rhythm is the same first measure as we've seen before, but the second measure is different. And then the second soprano is different still. So I'm not going to worry about trying to copy and paste to save a couple of seconds. It's going to be easier on my brain just to enter the music directly. So 5 dot, and then, oops, let me make sure I have focus here, 5 dot. And then I can click that top line, and I might call it F, even though I know perfectly well it's not really an F. Now, I'm clicking here, nothing's happening. You know why? Because I'm still in repitch mode. MuseScore does not return you to standard step time mode. You have to do that manually, and there is no default shortcut for that. So if you use repitch mode a lot, which frankly I don't, you might want to define yourself a shortcut for step time mode. I'm going to go ahead and do that because if those of you who have never seen shortcut definitions might want to see how to do that. So I'll go to Edit, Preferences, Shortcuts, and then I'm going to type the word step into the search box and see toggle note input mode default step time. That's the name of the command. And then I can click it and then click define. And now I can choose what I want it to be. So Control Shift I was repitch. I don't know if Control Shift S is available, but I think not. I think that's save as. So that's not available for step time. How about Control Shift N? Control Shift N just for regular note input. Normal. I don't know. I'm going to make that be my shortcut. Control Shift N. So now that Control Shift N is my shortcut for going to the step time mode, if I now press N for note input mode, you'll see it's still repitch. It's going to remain repitch until I press Control Shift N, and now it changes to the regular note input icon. So now I can finally type 5 period and click my note in. 4, same note. Oops, I missed. And this is why I don't use the mouse. It's so I'm just not accurate enough. That guy. And then 5. So my ear is telling me that that was just the tonic, a B. I don't know if that's really true. Or was that a D? See, I don't even know. But if when in doubt, I can look at the status bar. No, that was a D and then an E. Okay, because my ear is hearing D major, not B minor, because I haven't heard any context yet. So that was D, D, E. That's all well and good, but I'm not going to depend on being able to read this. I'm still just going to click in some notes. All right. When you're clicking in notes, you can skip right on past that rest. So if I type 5 period and then click in that guy, did I miss the period? If I did, Shift W will add the dot. 4, click, and then another one of those notes, and then one of these notes, and then one of those notes, and then one of those notes, right? Yeah, so I certainly know intellectually that that bottom line is now a middle C, and I can count and figure out, oh, if that one's C, then that top space is a C, and so that's a D, but I have to think. And so it's just, knowing how to read it is one thing, but if it's slower than just clicking, I'm not going to. So yeah, and the whole trick of remembering, oh, if I think down a third, these things can work for sure. But then what's going to happen is then as soon as I switch clefs, I'll forget that trick. Then I'm on alto clef, and I'm going to forget the trick that I used for soprano clef, right? I don't trust myself enough to do that. If that works for you, great. If you have more experience working in those clefs, those tricks will probably work better for you. I deal with them seldom enough that I find I forget the trick as fast as I learn it because I don't do it enough to make it any more ingrained. All right, so let's take a look. I've just entered those notes. So let's take a look at some of the things other than the lyrics that are a little different about what's going on here than what MuseScore did by default. MuseScore has beamed those last four eighth notes together. And that's the normal thing that you would do. Let me leave note input mode. Normally, those last four eighth notes should be beamed together. They're beats beats 3 and 4. However, the convention in vocal music, at least older vocal music, this convention isn't so much followed in modern editions of or modern music in general, but certainly older editions and some modern editions of older music use this other scheme in which beams are only used when there's melisma. Right? So that syllable, A, is 3 notes under one syllable. That's when you beam things. If you have different notes, different syllables for each note, you don't beam them. And so you'll probably find passages a little further into this piece if we keep scrolling around. Yeah, I don't know the piece well enough to know where to find it. But I will just say, yeah, you will find places where you'll have a whole bunch of flagged eighth notes because it's one syllable per note. And if that happens, then you get all those flagged eighth notes. The music for which that convention was invented didn't typically do that, having one syllable per eighth note, right? In Renaissance music, eighth notes were rarely used for individual syllables. Eighth notes were almost always I shouldn't say almost always, were very often, eighth notes were just for melisma. And then as you get into the Baroque and they start writing different note values, then eighth notes might start to become individual syllables more, but still you're going to have these long drawn out melismas a lot. It's as the music gets more modern and you're more often seeing individual syllables per eighth note and syncopations and more complicated rhythms, that's when they said, you know what, this business of breaking the beams and putting flags on every eighth note is no longer what we want to do. So I'm going to show you how to manually break that, and then I'm going to show you another technique using a plugin. So to manually break the beam here, I want to break the beam going into that. I keep wanting to call it a D, but it's really a B. So I select that note, and then I'm going to come over to the Properties panel. And on the Properties panel, you will see if I click where it says Beam, here are all these different options. And that's what I want to do, break the beam left. That breaks that beam. Okay? So I'm going to undo that for a second and point out that I've also defined keyboard shortcuts for that because I use that a lot. I sometimes don't remember what they are, but I believe I'm going to find it's Control Shift comma. No? Control comma? Oh, Control comma was the crash command apparently. Check that out. All right, so we're going to see how much of my work I will recover when I reopen this score, but I'm also just about done with this session. But let's take a look at a crash recovery. So there's my Bass in B minor. I have been saving it fairly often. Autosave is hopefully going to save my butt a little bit because I know I haven't saved it since I did most of that vocal work. But you can see that all those notes got saved anyhow, even if I didn't save it, because autosave has kicked in and helped me out there. So I have lost nothing. Love it. All right, save now. And so yeah, I forget. I had played around with shortcuts for the break beam command. Actually, let me just find out what that is. Edit, preferences, shortcuts, and beam. It looks like it's control period is break beam left, join beams is control comma. And so I think I tried to join a beam that was already beamed and that crashed it. Let's see if control period does better. Yeah, that does better. All right, so control period was my break beams command. Once I've entered the lyrics, though, we're going to see that there's also the possibility of using a plugin to automatically break beams and join them according to the lyrics. So let's get the lyrics in for this before I actually go, because I can't say that I'm entering some vocal music without having entered some lyrics, right? I am curious about the blurring thing, but I do think that is likely to be an internet connection, either mine or yours. If either of our internet connections slows down briefly, the system will automatically reduce the resolution to compensate. So it could be that my connection is a little flaky. Could be that just multiple people are having that also. All right, let's get those lyrics in here. One thing I will point out here is that this way the lyrics are entered here is an older style that is no longer used. And what I mean by an older style is this is one word, right? Kyrie. I'm anglicizing the Latin, but Kyrie, 3 syllables, but normally you would have hyphens, and these look like underscores. In you will see that underscores versus hyphens are used differently in modern editions, and so I'm not going to try to emulate how they're doing things. I'm going to enter things the way modern people would want to read this. So I will select that note, Control K for lyric. No, Control K is chord symbol. What am I thinking? Control L is lyric. KY hyphen RI hyphen E, and then my comma, and then space. And now KY, I am now going to hyphen to the RI hyphen to the E, and then space to the E, and then hyphen, hyphen, hyphen. The next hyphen would have gotten me to the next note, but I haven't entered the next note yet. So actually, let me do that. I'm just going to enter that one additional. I keep wanting it to be a B, but I should know better. So now if I double click that E and go hyphen, 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 LE. So that's how you enter the lyrics. I'm using hyphen, and you type hyphen for as many notes as you want it to cover. And notice the difference here is like there's a lot of space between the key and re here, and this editor has chosen to repeat that underscore. MuseScore has chosen not to. And MuseScore has a set of rules it follows for how. Like, that's a lot of space between 2 syllables to only include one hyphen. Let me save this, and then I'm going to show you the setting that controls that. If I go to Format, Style, Lyrics, you'll see max dash distance. This tells you basically how much space it's going to allow there to be around a dash before it decides to put multiple dashes in there. If I crank that thing way down, I think it will eventually, see it is now putting in multiple dashes. This is not the way music is typically done with that many dashes between these things. It kind of looks cluttered to most modern eyes, so I'm going to reset that back to the default, because if we don't have a specific reason to deviate from MuseScore's defaults, which were set by a guy who's a professional engraver, worked for forget the name of the publisher. I should know. Sorry about that, Simon. Dang it, what publisher? Not coming to me, but a major publisher. Anyhow, let me go back to that beaming thing, and then I think I will be done here. I'm going to go now and reset that to the default beam. And then if I have the plugin installed, so I'm going to set that back to auto. I'm now going to select these measures. I'm going to save. And I'm going to come to the plugins menu. And you'll see a plugin called Traditional Vocal Beaming. Now, this isn't there by default. If you haven't downloaded it, you don't have this one. But if you head over to MuseScore.org, download plugins, you'll find this plugin and you can download it. Watch what it does. Boom. It automatically detected that these three notes should be beamed because they are a melisma, but these two notes should not be beamed because they are not a melisma. So the traditional vocal beaming plugin will automatically fix up your beaming according to your lyrics. You can only run it after you've entered the lyrics because it's actually going to look at the lyrics to decide how things should look. So yeah, obviously I am only a small ways into this piece. I'm going to do one more thing just to finish that out, just to finish my thoughts on this, and that is put the dynamics in because I feel like you all should see how that's going to work. Because the dynamics for vocal music go above the staff. So if I come over to the dynamics palette and click myself in an F, it's below the staff, but they should go above the staff for vocal music. So I'm going to press X to flip it above. And then I can select that range and enter my hairpin and also flip it above. And then there's also a hairpin here between these notes and flip it above. And then there's a hairpin on those 3/8 notes and flip it above. Now they've done this kind of goofy little thing where they made that hairpin slant. That's kind of an affectation, but MuseScore does support it. You can, in fact, drag it to do that, but first, you have to tell it you want to. So I'm going to reset that thing, flip it back above, and now I'm going to go to Properties panel and tell it to allow the diagonal. If I allow the diagonal, now you'll see I can cause it to be diagonal just like that was. I don't personally think of that as an improvement here, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to put it back where it was, save it, and call it good. All right, so we covered a bunch of things, as we often do in these sessions, random things that come up. So I hope you all got something out of this that will be useful to you. And thanks to everyone for being here. This has been the MuseScore Café. My name, again, Marc Sabatella. You all know that. This was a process of entering some music that, yeah, now that I've been working on the other stuff, the sound is goofy here. But yeah, this idea of taking existing classical works and entering them into MuseScore, but making these decisions about what to modernize, what to use as a starting point, and what markings are worth copying, which markings were editorial additions that maybe you don't need, which editorial decisions like putting periods at the end of instrument names we don't need to follow, right? These are all kind of important decisions that we're going to be talking about more and more going forward as I put into place some new initiatives having to do with creating a nice library of good editions of music. So we're going to be looking at a lot more at that sort of thing going forward. Tomorrow, Music Masterclass, we'll be looking at some more of your submissions. You still got another day to get some stuff in. Thanks everyone. 70 degrees. I'm jealous. Thanks everyone. See you next time.